Welcome to WhiskyCast, cask-strength conversation featuring news and interviews from the world of whiskey. I'm Mark Gillespie, and this is episode number 1086 for December 8th, 2024. Coming up in a few minutes.
It would seem to be rather unreasonable to talk with you when things are going great and glorious, and then not talk to you when the proverbial hits the fan, which is what it's done. So here I am.
That's Mark Reynier, the founder of Waterford Distillery, which went into receivership last week. I'll talk with Mark about the events that led to the receivership, as well as his plans to bid for the distillery and its assets when the receivers hold an auction in January. That's coming up in a few minutes on WhiskyCast In-Depth. We'll also have the What I'm Tasting This Week department, Behind the Label, and much more. The news is next on this week's WhiskyCast.
The second release in Dewar's four-part collector series, Dewar's Double Double 38-Year-Old, is now available. It's a tribute to the Scottish Highlands, and it's like nothing you've had before. More in a minute.
Let's get started with the week's news. It's brought to you by the Dalmore. Brown-Forman reported its earnings for the first half of fiscal 2025 Thursday, and while sales were down, it's the prospect of what could be coming down the road that had analysts asking questions. The family-controlled company was hurt by tariffs on American whiskey exports to Europe between 2018 and 2021, and now faces the potential for import tariffs on its Scotch whiskies and tequila, as well as a potential return of the European export tariffs. Here's CEO Lawson Whiting from Thursday's investor call, where he told analysts that the company is already taking action to guard against the impact of potential tariffs.
We've got one tariff conversation around retaliatory tariffs from Europe based on steel and aluminum, which is what we suffered through in 2018 through 2021. And, just as sort of a reminder, that was really all about exports of American whiskey. And as clearly the market leader in that, it was a very painful and challenging time for us. That is scheduled to come back at the end of March. So it's still a few months out, and there's a whole lot that can happen over that time. The range is big, so it could further be suspended, which we think there's a decent chance for that. They can be removed altogether, or the most drastic scenario would be coming back at 50%, and I'm sure there's other scenarios in the middle that we could come up with. We're working with all the government stakeholders that you would imagine we would be, and we're obviously advocating for a solution that brings stability to all these trade relationships. Having said that, we have learned from our prior experience with tariffs. We have been proactively preparing for a number of these scenarios and implementing risk mitigation strategies for our portfolio really around the world. But at this point, there are so many unknowns and potential scenarios, and it's just difficult to figure out how it's all going to play out. Now, more recently, the conversation clearly in the media and basically everywhere has been more about Canada and Mexico and the plans for a 25% tariff there. So now we're obviously talking imports. Welcome to the party, the rest of our industry. We have been suffering alone, essentially, for all these years on the threat of tariffs, and now it's gotten much, much broader, and they're talking about, lots of different categories within alcohol. But our business, the spirits business, given categories like tequila, like Scotch, like Irish whiskey, and bourbon and Tennessee whiskey, they're called distinctive products. They must be made in their designated country or even state. And look, we're a proud U.S. headquartered company. We're hoping that the administration is going to realize that any growth in sales or production on those distinctive products made outside of the U.S. helps us to grow and brings more investment and capital here. And so, we'll see how this all plays out, whether or not these are negotiating tactics or real and how big they're going to be. Obviously, American whiskey is much bigger than tequila for us, but neither one is good for us.
For the first half of the fiscal year, Brown-Forman sales were off by 5%, while earnings per share declined by 3%. The sales decline was largely due to Brown-Forman's sale of Finlandia vodka and the Sonoma-Cutrer wine portfolio during the period. Net sales for whiskeys were off by 1%, as growth from Woodford Reserve and Old Forester in the U.S. offset declines from Jack Daniel's, the Glentronic, and Glenglassaugh. Also on the business front, former William Grant & Sons CEO Simon Hunt has been named the new CEO at Campari, replacing Matteo Fatticciati, who stepped down earlier this year after just 5 months on the job. Hunt takes over the corner office next month. He's been running Catalyst Spirits, the company behind Howler Head Whiskey and other brands. Campari acquired a stake in the company 2 years ago. In other news, Chivas Brothers has now submitted an application to Argyll and Bute Council for permission to build a distillery at Islay's Gartbreck Farm. The plans were announced earlier this year, but the application starts an approval process that could take several months. The company declined to make anyone available for interviews on the project. Whiskey Magazine announced its 2025 Scotland Icons of Whiskey Award winners the other night. Edinburgh's Holyrood Distillery was named Distillery of the Year, while Isle of Raasay Distillery was named the Craft Producer of the Year. Dewar's Master Blender Stephanie McLeod was named Master Blender of the Year, while Cardew's Rosalind Burnett was named Distillery Manager of the Year. Caskshare was named Independent Bottler of the Year, and the Scotch Whisky Experience was named Visitor Attraction of the Year. And by the way, Stephanie McLeod and Leonard Russell of Ian McLeod Distillers were added to Whiskey Magazine's Hall of Fame. The magazine also unveiled its Scottish winners in the World Whiskies Awards. Among the winners, Ardbeg's Corey Vrecken, 17 and 25 years old, Holyrood Distillery's Embra, Glenmurray's Phoenix Rising, Rosebank, 32 years old, Glenmorangie's Signet Reserve, and Glen Scotia, 25 years old. All of the winners will go on to compete against other regional winners from around the world. The world's best winners will be announced in March on the eve of Whiskey Live London. We have a link to the complete list of Scottish winners in the show notes for this episode at whiskycast.com. Meanwhile, an Ohio state lawmaker wants to cut down on the illegal secondary market in rare whiskeys. State Senator Bill DeMora is a bourbon lover, and he's introduced a bill that would require high-demand liquor bottles to be opened and resealed at the time of purchase. He's trying to fight off the flippers who buy allocated whiskeys like Pappy Van Winkle, Blanton's, and the like at list price, then resell them on the secondary market for a huge markup. DeMora says he stands in line like everyone else when the Ohio State-controlled liquor agency gets rare whiskeys in stock, and says he's been successful a couple of times, but gets shut out more often than not. He says he's trying to make it fair for Ohioans who want to drink and enjoy rare bourbons. New York state regulators are leaning on Vermont's WhistlePig whiskey to do something about the whiskey fungus spreading around WhistlePig's maturation warehouses in upstate New York. The fungus has been spreading around Mineville, New York, where WhistlePig has been maturing whiskey since 2017. According to Vermont television station WCAX, the state's Department of Environmental Conservation says it's working with WhistlePig on a corrective action plan. The distillery has already agreed to pay for power washing houses within 960 yards of the warehouses, but residents say there's a catch. They have to sign away their rights to legal action against WhistlePig to get their homes power washed. Thursday was the 91st anniversary of the repeal of Prohibition in the United States, and Old Forester celebrated by releasing a new edition in its 117 series of bourbons. The Warehouse Eye bourbon comes from barrels matured on the hottest floors of Old Forester's Warehouse Eye for 11 years. The whiskey is available at the Old Forester Distillery in Louisville, online, and at select Kentucky retailers for $64.99 a bottle. Other new whiskeys of note this week, the Macallan has released 2 new whiskeys as part of its partnership with Cirque du Soleil on the Harmony Collection. Harmony Vibrant Oak comes from a blend of First Fill American Oak and Second Fill Sherry Seasoned Oak casks, while the travel retail exclusive Guardian Oak is matured in First Fill European Oak and Second Fill Sherry Seasoned Oak casks. They're the 4th and 5th releases in the Harmony collection. Booker's Bourbon has released its 4th and final batch for the year, and it honors a competitor. That's right, they named it Jimmy's Batch in honor of Jimmy Russell, who's been a longtime friend of the No family. The whiskey is 7 years, 9 months, and 15 days old, and is bottled at 62.9% ABV. The recommended retail price is $99.99 a bottle. Arizona's Whiskey Del Bach released its annual Ode to Islay single malt this weekend. It's not peated, but smoked with mesquite. This year's batch has a backbone of rye barrel finishes, along with Sauterne and Pinot de Charente wine casks. Only 1,400 bottles are available through the distillery's website. High West and Casa Noble Tequila have teamed up on a new rye whiskey. The Noble Share takes rye whiskeys between 4 and 10 years old and finishes them in Casa Noble Añejo tequila barrels for 6 months. It's available in limited quantities nationwide in the U.S., with a recommended retail price of $174.99 a bottle. Blue Run Spirits has released a new bourbon for the holidays. Ember is bottled at 64.4% ABV and is available in 6 U.S. states and online, with a recommended retail price of $129.99 a bottle. And India's Paul John Whiskey has released its annual Christmas edition. It's finished in a combination of virgin oak and Caribbean rum casks and is available in the U.S. for around $80 a bottle. I received a sample this week. I'll have my tasting notes for it later on. Japan's Fuji Whiskey is celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Fuji Gotemba Distillery with a special 50th anniversary single malt. The blend includes whiskeys ranging from 12 to 50 years old and uses some malt whiskey from the distillery's first distillate in 1973. It's priced at $500 a bottle, with just 3,000 bottles available worldwide. And finally, England's Bimber Distillery has released its first age statement single malt whiskies. The 8-year-old single cask edition is available to Bimber Club members exclusively, while the Harmony of 8 single malt is matured in a combination of ex-bourbon and PX sherry casks. It's available for £130 a bottle through the Bimber website. You can keep up with the latest whiskey news all week long at whiskycast.com and in the WhiskyCast community app. The news is brought to you by the Dalmore.
Hello, Richard Patterson here, Master Distiller, Master Blender for the Dalmore. You know, whenever the team and I are in the world sharing our exceptional single malt, we like to keep in touch with Mark Gillespie and the latest news from WhiskyCast.
Let's check the calendar and see what's happening around the world of whiskey. Druitt's is holding its final 2024 auction of rare spirits and wines this Tuesday in Newbury, England. The Scotch Whisky Experience has its annual Distillers' Fair in Edinburgh on December 29th and 30th. After the holidays, the Edmonton MS Whisky Festival is on January 15th, followed the next night by the Calgary MS Whisky Festival and the start of the Victoria Whisky Festival in Victoria, British Columbia. The Brandy Library in New York City starts off 2025's Spirit School classes with a tasting pitting whiskeys from Scotland and Japan on the 18th. And the Whiskey Global is in Vancouver, British Columbia, January 24th and 25th. If you're organizing a whiskey event, let us know about it. We'll add it to the calendars at whiskycast.com and in the WhiskyCast community app.
Dewar's Double Double 38-year-old is the second release in a 4-part limited edition collector series honoring Scotland's most legendary whiskey regions. This rare blended malt, a tribute to the Upper Scottish Highlands, is crafted from nearly 4-decade-old Highland and Islay whiskies. It undergoes Dewar's unique 4-stage aging process with a final finish in Pedro Jimenez sherry casks from the prestigious Royal Brackless single malt. The finish invites you to explore your own tasting notes, but for me, there's incredible depth, with rich layers of vanilla, toasted cereals, dried figs, plums, dark chocolate, and a subtle hint of Islay smoke, all beautifully balanced. To truly elevate this tasting experience, renowned chef Gabriel Cruther, in collaboration with Dewar's, has created an exclusive selection of custom chocolates. Crafted from the world's finest ingredients, each piece is infused with a few precious drops of Dewar's Double Double 38-year-old whiskey, making this a luxurious and unforgettable pairing. Now available, this exquisite pairing of whiskey and chocolate promises to deliver an unforgettable experience. Please drink responsibly. Copyright 2024. Dewar's is a trademark. Imported by John Dewar & Sons Company, Coral Gables, Florida. Blended Scotch whiskey, 48.8% alcohol by volume.
WhiskyCast In-Depth is brought to you by Oban and the Classic Malts lineup. As we reported last time around, Ireland's Waterford whiskey went into receivership last week. The future for the distillery is uncertain, with the receivers set to auction off the assets in January. Waterford founder Mark Reynier isn't giving up hope yet. As he told me this week in one of his rare interviews since the distillery went under, he's hoping to put together a group of investors to buy Waterford back. Here's our conversation. Well, let's start with the obvious. What happened last Wednesday?
What happened last Wednesday? Well, the Waterford went into receivership. Basically, we don't do Chapter 11. We don't have a thing like that over here. And so the board decided that we would need to protect the business. And the way we do it over here is you go in, you appoint, or the bank, we ask the bank to appoint a receiver, which means I'm no longer in control. So I'm speaking to you as not on behalf of Waterford, but as a private individual. And I just felt that, I'm very happy to talk to you. It would seem to be rather unreasonable to talk with you when things are going great and glorious, and then not talk to you when the proverbial hits the fan, which is what it's done. So here I am.
What was it like when you had to tell the employees last week?
Well, I think they knew what was coming. This doesn't happen overnight. It sort of accelerates rather quickly. Never having been in this situation before, I can tell you it's not, a very pleasant one. And the pressures and the burdens, it sort of accelerates. And very simply put, you've let them down. These guys that have ridden with you on this ride, this roller coaster of a journey, and at the end of the day, you've let them down. They knew things were difficult. They know the market's been extremely tight and extremely closed and shut. They know, we've had difficulties, very much stemming from the very simple thing that, our expenditure versus our revenue, they didn't match. Whereas they should have been by now, if, everything was level and a clear, playing field, the two would have matched, but they didn't. Interest rates being very high, going from 0.25% to 5.25% within 6 months, has been crippling for us because we invest that all in laying down stock. And this is where, I'm not going to point the finger at anybody or moan or blame anybody. It's my business plan. It was my project, my idea, and I was, driving it. It's but myself to blame. But the background is when I set up the project, out of my experiences with Brookladdy, what I wanted to do was build a war chest of stocks, so that for 3 reasons. One is we would never have a shortage. We'd never be looking over our shoulder or having to compromise with bottling where you were using sort of sub-optimal stock. I wanted to make sure everything was the very best possible. Secondly, to provide us with the volume to allow Waterford to age, not always be young, but to age, to become a mature whiskey with bottlings that are 20, 25 years old. And then thirdly, strategically, a war chest that, when the shit hit the fan, which inevitably it would do at some point in the future, we could sell surplus stock to pay our way. So that was the reason. So we set up a facility with the bank, which allowed us to distill, and then with the collateral, we could then distill more, and then with increased collateral, we could distill more to keep it that million liters going each year. And of course, that's what came back to bite me in the bottom, because when we started that, as I said, interest rates were 0.25%, and then post COVID, it became the base rate was 5.25, and when you do that on 6.7 million liters of maturing stock, it's a hefty weight, a millstone. What should have been our life belt became a millstone. Because, of course, when we went to sell some of our surplus stock, there was no room, because all the big guys had got there first. All the big guys have been offloading stock like mad because they can. They can just offload it. They don't care. They got so many distilleries. They got so many sub brands. They can offload stock, but it just cleared the pitch for everybody else. So just when I wanted to sell those stocks for this precise situation, we couldn't do it. So something had to give, and the board decided that we would have to save the business, save the thing by putting it into receivership, giving us time to interpath to sort it out, and then market it and sell either the business or the assets, and the assets being that fantastic stock and that extraordinary distillery. So that's where we are. So I mean, not my greatest hour. I've felt better, I can tell you. Part of it is that feeling that you've let everybody down. And yeah, you can point to going to market the day before lockdown. You can point at our investment in America. You can point at the constipation of the market, the destocking that's been going on since post-COVID, the cost of living crisis, interest rates, all of that. Yeah, but it all happened at the same time, and it's happened for everybody. So but when you've got no meat on the bone because you haven't been able to have a run at it, that's the problem. Nowhere to go. If we distilled less and done it on a smaller scale, well, it wouldn't have been quite so painful. So it's my strategy. It was my idea. I'm to blame.
What do you think the future is for Waterford under receivership? Do you think you'll be able to get it out of receivership and operate it as an ongoing business?
That's what I'm gunning for. That's what I'm gunning for, Mark. That's what I'm gunning for. I know what we've created. I know how good it is. I know what we've got, maturing away. I know how close we are to the work that's gone in developing and the brand. These things don't happen overnight. It takes cumulative effort. It's like I was saying to someone the other day. It's like a building. You sink huge amounts of money into the ground, which you never see, into the foundations. The time and the effort goes into underground work, and then eventually you get to ground level, and then the building shoots up quick. That's where we've got to. A lot of effort underground, and we're just getting to the point where, with a fair wind and a turn in the market that everyone, is anticipating, that we'd be off to the races. But we didn't get there. We ran out of time. We just ran out of time.
Was it a case of trying to grow too quickly?
No, not at all. Not at all. Trying to grow too quickly. No, it's just not having a flat, path to do it in. With many disruptions in place. We haven't been able to have a free go at it. It's been, as our French distributor said, he's never seen conditions like it. And that's not ideal, trying to establish a brand in such circumstances. I made mistakes. I know. I don't deny. We're almost there, but not quite. Now, Waterford Mark II, debt free, would be a different ballgame. The groundwork is there. To build on that, I would very much like the opportunity to do that. So I will, be bidding to buy back the business and carry on. I've got unfinished business. There's more to do. I haven't done what I haven't got to where I wanted to get to. I don't want to let go. I may be forced to, but I don't want to let go. There's too much time and effort invested in this. Of course, there's money, but it's more than that. It's about what Waterford stands for, and I've been bowled over by the support. The messages of support have been just unbelievable. I mean, even from people that were doubters and naysayers, at the beginning. It's been fantastic. I've been overwhelmed, and thank you for those messages. I really do appreciate it in what is a very embarrassing and difficult and sad time. It's been quite an eye-opener to see those, and so what it really, what it makes you realise is that we were actually moving the dial. We were actually changing people's views, and I want to keep that that Waterford principle, ethos of natural, pure whiskey, the way it used to be. I think it resonates, and given a fair wind and in better conditions. I think we would be in an altogether different place. Time. It's as it always these days. It's about time, and our timing was not ideal.
Should we see this as an isolated incident within the whiskey industry, or a sign of more to come?
Oh, I'm not going to say that. I mean, Mark, that's for you to say. No, I mean, I can't fault the bank. It was my plan. I'm not going to say, there's some miserable buzz. No, of course not. It was the strategy we deployed. So it is an isolated case. Second question is, do you think other distillers around the world will fail? Well, of course they will. They always are. It's not an easy business. But no, I think it's an isolated case.
Given that whiskey sales are declining, and we've seen the destocking that you referred to earlier, is this a good time to be in the whiskey business? Where do you see sales going?
No, it's not. Well, how do you expect me to answer that one? It's not been fun. As I said earlier, it depends how established your brand is. If you're an established brand, it's painful. You're not making your budgets, you're not making your targets. It's painful, but it's not terminal. If you don't have the flesh on the bone when the famine comes, that's the problem. We didn't have the flesh on the bone. We hadn't got there yet. So it's more difficult. Had we been a more modest-sized enterprise, it wouldn't have been so painful. If we didn't have the same borrowing, it wouldn't have been so painful. We wouldn't have been so exposed to interest rates. But that was a deliberate ploy. The fault, the flaw, was that I didn't anticipate COVID and all the rest of it, but I didn't anticipate that everyone would be flogging their stocks at the same time. That was the error in my plan.
Where do you go going forward, assuming that you're able to buy Waterford out of bankruptcy?
Well, it would be out of receivership. It would be more of the same. I'd carry on, except this time debt free, which of course changes the dial completely, because it gives you far greater degree of flexibility and competitiveness going forward. It's then that those stocks will come to be the savior, because we'll be able to use surplus stocks when the market has recovered to repay our investment, which means that the remaining half of the stocks we can then use for the brand, and that will give us a huge degree of flexibility. So when I woke up on Thursday morning, Friday, Wednesday night, I wanted to cut my wrist. Thursday morning, you suddenly thought, actually, I can see clearly now. That all that worry and pressure on your shoulders, on one, on my shoulders, had gone. The realization that that was it. Okay, you draw a line under it all, and now what? And you look forward and you realize what the blessings, the good things, the quality of the stock, the uniqueness of the distillery, the people at the distillery. I want to save it. I want to buy it back because I'm confident of what we've got, and I want to do it and bring it to fruition. So I will do my damnedest to try and achieve that. I'm putting together a syndicate of investors to support a bid in January when this process occurs, and like other bids, no doubt there will be. Hopefully, the bid will be winning, and we can resume this wacky journey that is Waterford.
Do you think you'll still have the employees left when this comes about?
I can't comment on anything. That's inter-park. And as I said, I'm talking to you as not as CEO of Waterford, but as a private person. So I can't comment on that. I believe, you need to ask them that. Would they want to come with me again? You need to ask them. I hope so.
What if you're not able to buy it? What if somebody else comes in and takes over Waterford?
Well, that's true. And that's distinctly possible. And that's the unsettling thing, is you are not in control of the ship anymore. This is out with my control. So yes, that may well happen. In which case, what does happen? Does the distillery get sold off? Does it? The whiskey stocks get asset stripped? Does it get coolified? I suppose the good thing there is that the genetic quality of Irish whiskey will be the better for it. I don't know. I can't say. I have to believe. I believe what we've done is great. I will do my damnedest to try and retain it, but it may not be possible. Have you got a job?
For now.
No, for me.
No. No, but...
it's a joke, Mark. It's a joke.
I know. Give me a sense of what happened in the weeks leading up to the receivership when you were trying to raise additional capital. What was the response?
You are an absolute voyeur well, shareholder-wise, we'd already maxed out our shareholders, so that wasn't happening. So we weren't able to go back to our shareholders. We looked at selling some whiskey to private people, but really, the volumes we needed to sell to make a difference were larger, and the global spirits industry is not in a strong place at this time. It doesn't take much to Google and find that all is not well at the moment in this post-COVID period. So I think confidence in doing that was not there. So it was unproductive. And as I said, so these fantastic stocks end up becoming more of a millstone than the lifebelt that they were meant to be. So it's a very disconcerting time. With a shrinking perimeter. The pressure mounts, the speed increases. It's not very attractive, I can tell you.
How are you doing?
Well, I'm still here. I'm as I said, this fight burns. You want to carry it on. If I thought we'd done a crap job, if I thought the whiskey was awful, you'd walk away from a car crash. But I know it's not, and I know how close we are to getting to that critical thing. I just need a period of stability to be able to do it. So I want to crack at it, and whilst that chance is there, one has to be optimistic, and that's, I suppose, what's driving it at the moment. There's no point sitting there in a pool of tears. That's not going to get you anywhere. Whilst there's any fight left in you, whilst a breath of you've got to fight on, haven't you? Wouldn't you?
Of course. I think that about does it. Anything else you can add I didn't ask about?
Anything else? Well, no. Apart from I want to thank you. You've always been very receptive to what we've been doing, and I thank you for that. And which is why I wanted to take your opportunity, your invitation to speak to you today. Our supporters, people that have followed and believed what we do. Obviously our shareholders, who have been, very supportive of my ideas and the distillery. Everybody at the distillery, who've been fantastic. And your listeners, who've supported our brand and bought and drank bottles. I hope we'll open one tonight and have a dram on me. And let's hope that we can keep this dream alive. It's a lot of blood, sweat, and toil and tears has gone into it. The great people we've met along the way and on the road. Fantastic support from people, the messages, the support. We'll carry. I will carry on the fight. Last breath in my body, I'll carry it on. So let's see what happens.
We'll keep up with the receivership process as it goes forward, and thanks to Mark Reynier for joining us on this week's WhiskyCast In-Depth. It's brought to you by Oban, a deliciously smooth single malt known for its coastal charm and Highland heritage, loved by whiskey lovers worldwide. Discover Oban's full lineup at malts.com. Let's start the What I'm Tasting This Week department with the Paul John 2024 Christmas Edition Indian Single Malt that I mentioned during the news. It's bottled at 46% ABV and finished in a combination of Caribbean rum and virgin oak casks. The nose has touches of pineapple, mango, vanilla, caramel, coconut, and a hint of sandalwood. The taste has spicy notes of cinnamon, clove, and allspice, along with coconut, chocolate-covered orange slices, toasted oak, and vanilla, while the finish is long and fruity with a touch of oak tannins. I'm scoring the Paul John 2024 Christmas Edition a 93. Next up, let's look at the new Compass Box Secret of Smoke limited edition release. It's a blended malt bottled at 50% ABV. The nose has a soft smokiness along with touches of stewed prunes, plums, and clover honey. The taste has notes of black pepper, creosote, peat smoke, plums, honey, and cocoa powder, while the finish is long with a gentle smokiness. I'm scoring the Compass Box Secret of Smoke a 93. Finally, with the anniversary of Prohibition's repeal on Thursday, I decided to taste the pre-Prohibition style rye whiskey from Pennsylvania's Dad's Hat Whiskey. It's bottled at 47.5% ABV. The nose has rye spices with a hint of dill, brown sugar, molasses, and vanilla. The taste has a nice balance of clove, cinnamon, and allspice, complemented by molasses, pipe tobacco, and honey. The finish, long and spicy. I'm scoring the Dad's Hat pre-Prohibition style rye whiskey a 92. I'll be adding these whiskeys to our searchable list of more than 3,800 different whiskeys from all over the world. Check it out this week at whiskycast.com. Let's open up the inbox now and see what people are talking about this week in our community segment. There's a lot of skepticism on social media about Mark Reynier's attempt to buy Waterford Distillery out of receivership. Sav70 tweeted on X, "Wasn't the problem that they couldn't get more money from investors?" Our friend Bill Linnane tweeted from Ireland, "What if we turn the terroir up to 11? And Simon, Mr. L. Banhammer, tweeted this, "It seems odd to think that the answer to Waterford is an enhanced dose of Reynier." I tweeted the other day that Waterford and the Kentucky Owl bankruptcy could be the proverbial canaries in the coal mine, a sign of more problems coming. Gerald Glavota at G2 Whiskey responded with this, "I believe it's well beyond whiskey. Walking around the trendy streets of Toronto near me, a couple of large stores closed, and more important, no signs in the higher-end windows looking for seasonal help. People drinking what they have, some cheaper or none. Bars need help, too." I posted a photo of that Dad's Hat bottle on Instagram Thursday to celebrate Repeal Day, and Stephen Radcliffe commented from Canada, "Love me some Dad's Hat Pennsylvania Rye. I just poured a dram from its sister bottle. High praise coming from Canada." Had a couple of responses in the WhiskyCast community app to the story out of Ohio, where a state senator is proposing a bill that would require the state's liquor agency to open and reseal rare whiskey bottles at the point of purchase to discourage flippers. Peter Sprunger responded, "Overall, I like the idea. I once heard a story of a guy getting a marked-up rare bottle because he offered to give the owner a drink right then and there." But Alan Chanel had the opposite response. "Please, no. I would not want to wait another 10 minutes for some clerk to open and reseal my prize bottle. Also, this would require a formal statewide list of the high-demand bottles. With limited editions such as Jack Daniel's 12-year, or even non-limited labels such as Blanton's or Weller Special Reserve be on it, please, no." What's your take? Download the free WhiskyCast community app and join the conversation. You'll find it in your app store. You can also find us on Blue Sky, Threads, X, Instagram, and Facebook at WhiskyCast, and the email address is comments@whiskycast.com. Let's close out the show now with Behind the Label, our look at the history, science, and people who make whiskey unique. Bourbon lovers like to claim that their favorite whiskey is, quote, America's native spirit. After all, Congress declared it as such in a 1964 resolution, right? Not so fast, my friends. Drew Hanisch researched this and other whiskey myths and legends for his new book, Whiskey Lore Part 1. Remember during the news when Brown-Forman CEO Lawson Whiting was talking about various spirits being, quote, distinctive products of their home countries? Well, that's what Congress actually did in 1964 when it declared bourbon a distinctive product of the United States. The part about America's native spirit, that came along much later, in the early 1990s, when whiskey marketers started using the term in their ads. However, there is a happy ending to all this. When the late Kentucky Senator Jim Bunning introduced a resolution in 2007 to declare September as National Bourbon Heritage Month, he referred to bourbon as America's native spirit. That made it official 43 years later. If you have something you'd like us to look at on an upcoming episode, just get in touch with us. That's all for this episode of WhiskyCast. You'll find links for the stories in this episode in our show notes at whiskycast.com. That's also where you'll find the latest whiskey news, my tasting notes, the calendar of events, the whiskey photo of the week, and, of course, a complete archive of past episodes going all the way back to 2005. Get in touch with us on X, Threads, Blue Sky, Instagram, and Facebook at WhiskyCast, or you can use the WhiskyCast community app. Download it today from your app store. Our email address is comments@whiskycast.com.
Dewar's Double Double 38-year-old blended malt has arrived, and it's a true gem for collectors. Secure a bottle, and you'll be adding a rare piece of history to your collection.
WhiskyCast is a production of Cask Strength Media, copyright 2024. And comes to you from the charming, yet regrettably dry town of Haddonfield, New Jersey. I'm Mark Gillespie, reminding you that when you drink, please drink responsibly. Thanks for listening.